Sora said he'll be joining, but he'll be a little bit late.
Cool.
So that way it's like, okay, well, let's get started and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll just have fun, and then we might turn it into a call-in show. So let's see here. Copy link to clipboard. Boo 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 boo. And then let me go into studio. Ba-bum. All right, and live. Ba-bum.
We have a Splinter Cell animated series, but no game.
Oh my goodness, really?
That's when you know that they're just trolling us.
That's I was listening to what podcast was I listening to? The Xbox IGN podcast, and it was like, oh, what's up, Taylor? Tyler? User has been banned for naughty words. I like the name. Howdy. How are y'all doing today? Yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, Splinter Cell, and it's always like, okay, Sam Fisher is everywhere, but in a video game.
Yep.
All right, well, Sora said he might be running a little late. We'll see. I'm gonna pin the message here in both for call-ins if you guys want to jump in. Sora was here. Bum ba bum bum bum.
Hey, buddy.
What's happening?
Oh, just getting through the day. Just picked the kiddo up for her last day of school.
Nice.
Yeah, she gets to go into third grade now.
Oh, dude, you're in trouble.
Oh, I've been in trouble, man.
The boy's gonna be knocking at the door. What's that?
I don't want to be there just yet.
Not just yet. Not just yet. All right.
My one friend and I have a thing that whenever a boy does come over or something like that, I want him there with me, and we're gonna pull the
cleaning your gun or whatever.
No, the Bad Boys 2. With, with Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
That whole scene where the kid comes up to the door, they start acting crazy and everything.
It's like, welcome. Are you sure? Are you sure? You're in? You're in for this? All right. So outline-wise, if there's anything you guys wanted to add, we're talking Lost Ark finally coming to the West, Elden Ring, New World, and 14 takes the number one spot. And then in the hot topic, PSO2 impressions and our roadmap for the future of New Genesis. Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about in here or what have you?
Evil Dead.
What's Evil Dead?
You didn't just say that, right?
It's like a movie, right?
Of course. It's like the greatest movie of all time.
Ash versus the Evil Dead?
Of course.
Well, I know about that, but it's like, are they making a game or something?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, that's cool. Well, then I have no idea, so I'll be like, what? Tell me about this Evil Dead game. And thanks, guys, for hitting subscribe. If you're new here, be sure to go subscribe to Chaos Prime. All his links and stuff will be in the description connected, because I can tag him. Sora needs to get on his YouTube game, so I could actually tag him. Makes it easy. Bunch of lazy people making me copy and paste links.
Oh, man.
Actually, you're doing it right.
Anyway, yeah, so it's like this has been probably like my largest subscription week in the history of the channel right now, so it's pretty exciting. Last time I saw like daily numbers this big on the subscribers was back when Genshin Impact launched. So thank you guys for anybody who's hit subscribe and liked the video or podcast, etc. So appreciate you guys. Let's see here. It is 3 minutes after the hour or the half hour. We ready to podcast? We ready?
I guess so.
What is that bird?
Like you can hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the window open. I can close it if you want.
No, dude, I don't need you to pass out because it's hot where you're in the UK right now.
Here. But yeah, I'm surprised you can hear that. I could barely hear it myself.
Do you have a 3080 or do you have a RTX card?
I do.
Have you downloaded the the NVIDIA broadcast software?
I think so.
if you
think it
have,
comes with
like, I wouldn't be
experience.
able to pick that. Can you hear that?
No.
That's what the software is. I had my kids banging on the door, and they cannot, and nobody can hear them. They're not banging on the door right now, but like I was in a meeting. Yeah, like, Brian, just play with your kids. Like 100% agreed. But no, I was like in a meeting, and it's like, can you hear them? That's how powerful the software is, dude.
Nice.
So absolutely recommended. Absolutely
NVIDIA
recommended.
Broadcaster. Okay.
Yeah. And so what it is like, even here on the chat, I have it set to, that's what is, my mic goes to the broadcast software, and all the other software pull in from that mic, and you can set different filters and things like that. So truly powerful. What's going on, MMO Ronin, by the way? Love your name. Glad you got your channel back, Death Monkey, aka Rich. And you guys, okay, so we're gonna dive into the show here in a second, but in the pinned comment up top, if you're watching on Ginger Gaming Radio or Ginger Prime, we're also on Facebook for all you Facebook people out there. If you want to come in and come on the show, call in for certain sections, depending, as long as we don't run long. I got a busy afternoon planned. We'll probably do a call-in show. Last call-in show actually went really well, so I thought it was pretty exciting. Just all I ask, you don't need to be on camera. You just need to have a good mic. And if you have a new RTX card, I don't think you even need that. Just that software in and of itself does wonders. All right. Let me hit record. Boo. Camera recording. Getting those text messages.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. That actually reminds me, I'll mute my phone. Cool. Awesome. And let's go. Brand. And here we go. I bet you can't even hear me snapping, right?
No.
That's the power. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to Epic Loot Radio. I am your host, Brian. Joining me back in the co-host chair, we've got Chaos Prime returning after a week or two of crazy work. Soro is also here co-hosting, as well as today we dive into just an epic week for video games here on the verge of E3 2021, coming into Summer Games Fest right now. Got some amazing announcements, some exciting stuff to be excited for. Exciting. All the best words here on Epic Loot Radio from this Ginger. So first and foremost, I want to get caught back up with Chaos, dude. What are you playing? What have you been working on? How is life going?
Well, life has been great. Lots of work has kept me away from the podcast, which has been sad. And I've been doing a lot of 14 this past 2 weeks. A lot. I think I've memorized every single word in that main scenario now, as I'm trying to get the tokens to get all the rewards I want from there. I do 7-8 runs a day. It is, the grind is real.
The grind is real.
So that's been basically what I've been mainly playing, and on the side I've been trying to fit in a bit of Genshin Impact.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited today to jump into Ratchet and Clank.
On your PS5. Yeah.
Yes.
Like dusting it off, or you've been playing 14 on the PS5 as well?
14 on the PS5. I think the only 3 games I played, 2 games I've played on the 3 games I play on the PS5 is 14, Returnal, and Genshin Impact. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't use it for anything else.
All right, Soro, dude, what are you gaming? How's life?
Been working on some new Genesis. Got Hunter up to level 8 or level 9 or something like that. Got my subclass up there and having a lot of fun with that. I think they had a emergency maintenance this morning to help fix lag, which is nice. But other than that, working on some 14 probably tonight, tomorrow, trying to get my Tombstone gear ready to go and upgraded and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Also today on the show, just FYI, we're going to be talking about Lost Ark, Elden Ring, New World. Final Fantasy 14 is going to be a big subject, especially with just the state of World of Warcraft and Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis impressions. For myself, I've been crazy busy at work. I've gotten to level 5 or 6 in New Genesis. The limiting factor is I had to sleep. I didn't want to stop playing, and it's so refreshing and exciting to have that experience to where I'm running into my own physical limitations with this game. So we're going to talk about more of the new Genesis here in the back half, but we have a lot of gaming news, a lot of the Summer Game Fest and E3 just around this quarter. If you guys are tuning in with us live or you're listening, we're going to have this show out to you in MP3 format pretty quickly after this show goes live or wraps up. And this Sunday, Xbox, Square Enix, I'm very excited. We'll be covering those events for you live, getting y'all slots. If you're interested and you want to join into today's show, you can always just leave a comment in live and we'll highlight it, just like with Americon here. I'm probably butchering the name, saying good morning. So good morning to you as well. And or we also have our pinned link. If you want to jump in with a good mic, you can tune in and share your thoughts on any of the gaming news that you're most excited about. So before the show actually we hit record and diving in, you were talking about Evil Dead Chaos. Dude, what's going on with that? Like, why is that something to be excited about? Floor is yours.
I mean, the game seems like a 4v1, like Deadlight kind of game. It's a better version of Friday the 13th. But it's Evil Dead. It's based on the universe. It's based on the first two movies. So if you like that franchise and you like that world and you've enjoyed, because the third movie was a bit on and off, but the first two movies were great. And the whole game is based around it. And you can actually now become the Deadites and play as the Deadites. It just looks really cool. It's, Bruce Campbell's in there. It's got all his cheesy quotes, one-liners that you can expect. If you're a fan of the franchise, it's just a dream come true.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. Dream come true. Evil Dead coming out, and the fact that they're kind of modeling it off of the success of Friday the 13th and these other games that are just from a streaming perspective, I think that's going to have something that ends up just giving it a whole new life. Going into this next generation, maybe getting more people to check out those movies for the first time. So, and then Gizmo here says, how can you say that Army of Darkness wasn't great? So
I didn't say wasn't great. I just said the first two were better.
All right. So this just yesterday we had a lot of breaking news, especially as Summer Games Fest kicked itself into high gear. And honestly, it's a really exciting time. I think gamers have just been hungry for new content, new information, and more. And it seems like this is a really good start for kind of that rolling into E3. The big announcements in my mind, at least speaking for myself, were Elden Ring and Lost Ark coming to the West. Elden Ring having a 4-player multiplayer component makes me more interested into it right away, because I like people like, oh, Elden Ring, when are we going to see Elden Ring? It's like, okay, like I know it's from Software. That seems interesting. I haven't been a big Souls fan. I haven't actually played those, so maybe I'm going to enjoy them at their core, but them announcing a multiplayer component has me immediately perk up. Like, oh man, this is something that maybe I could play with my friend Soro. Is Elden Ring anywhere on your radar? And you got 2 thumbs up. Go ahead.
Absolutely. It definitely looks great. It reminds me of Dark Souls. It also reminds me of like Dragon's Dogma a little bit. Things like that. Bloodborne kind of feel looks like with the trailer and everything. And I've always, tried the games out, got probably about halfway through it, and then something else caught my attention. Yeah. But I'll definitely pick it up and play it.
Chaos, how about you?
Souls games have never really been my thing. I've played a couple, not really liked them. I'll check it out for sure, but not sure how I'll get on with it, honestly.
The date being that it's dropping in January 21st, I believe, 2020.
Yes.
Actually is something that I think is going to work for its favor in the long run, because it's like at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, that's actually great, because there's not much that I usually budget time for in a slow, cold month of January. So it's like that could easily be something that is a really good start to the year, much like what we saw with Monster Hunter World. I remember when Monster Hunter World dropped, it's like, whoa, like this just kind of came out of nowhere. And it wasn't really anything else that was in my mind that was taking me away from my gaming experience. It was something that I always kind of like, those January releases that kind of get out of the big holiday weekend blockbusters, that we see with we know the Call of Duty's getting printed in this fall. We know that these certain games are happening this fall. We know that Endwalker is dropping this fall. And then it's like, great, now that might be something that, if if you finished off the story of Final Fantasy 14 and you're looking for something slightly a little bit different, that might be a nice little thing to vacation into for a while. All right, so outside of that, we got some New World information today. Essentially, New World did their presentation this morning that was a part of Summer's Games Fest. Just to give you guys a brief summary of the information that was delivered, it was everything we've already known. I love it when they have these kind of hyped up PR campaigns that are a part of like Summer Game Fest. It's like, if you follow the game at all, and you did not get anything you want, but no matter what, they know they're going to get you invested. So I was there watching this morning going like, oh, let's see if they give us any new information. And it literally was just like, oh, here's everything that you already know. And I go, they got me. They got me again. I was hoping for more information, but it serves as a really good kind of purpose for those running out there. However, New World has its work cut out for it, namely in its perception. It doesn't have the trusted community, and also when it comes to its cash shop, that is a sticking and hot topic that we covered last week, especially with what Rurikon and his input on it being kind of something where that definitely makes it a concern for him. Let's go with Soro. Soro, New World, where do you fall on the scheme of it? Is it a game that you're actively interested in? Why not? And does the cash shop currently concern you?
Well, considering I pre-ordered it, I would say I'm still going to play it. Like, I loved playing in the beta. The beta was a lot of fun whenever we were in together. But the cash shop doesn't bother me at all. Like, personally, it doesn't. I don't need to take part in it if I don't want to. It's that simple. Like, it's just like the 14 cash shop from what I've been told, what I've been seeing.
Mm-hmm.
You can participate in it. It helps fund what is going on. Sure. If there's something really cool on there, yeah, I'll drop the $5, $10, $15 to get it. Just being like, oh, this is a really cool weapon skin, or this is a really cool, glamour or something like that. But other than that, I don't need to even look at it. I mean, I get the people concerned, or like, we're concerned, you're concerned, some people are concerned about, oh, well, you can just drop an entire year's salary on stuff in this thing, and those people won't even bat an eye at it and everything like that. I'm like, okay, cool. You want to pay my way too? Then great. I'll tell you a couple things that I think are pretty neat. You can get me. But other than that, like, it doesn't bother me any. Like,
yeah,
I know where my money needs to go, and it doesn't need to go there. So,
see, for me, I don't mind a cash shop. I think those buy-to-play games with zero subscription need to monetize in order to, keep the game running. Money doesn't just come out of thin air. Wish it did, because I'd be rich. But, it doesn't. So they need to monetize it somehow. My problem is how they actually monetize it. See, the way 14 monetizes it, I think, is right. Everything is cosmetic and nothing gives you an advantage outside of the bike. But you can actually sort that out and get
the whale and yeah, go ahead.
The XP boosters that they're looking to add, the only thing that's of concern to me is if it will impact the main game.
Mm-hmm.
Will they be, tweaking the XP system in a way to make me want to spend and buy a bit of XP booster, or make me want to get that rested XP, or basically slowly but surely just nudge me ever so slightly to that side? As long as they don't do that, then I don't care for it. At the moment, I feel like the grind is worse because they want me to go to the shop.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I'll draw the line. And with these companies, that fine line is very difficult to meet. Blade and Soul started off relatively well, and then as soon as they saw they could monetize it, XP went through the roof. BDO was the same. Once you get to the late game, it can take forever to gain a level unless you buy boosters. And even then, it's still going to take forever. As long as it doesn't affect my gameplay, I'm okay. But if it starts affecting my gameplay, that's where I draw the line. I don't mind dropping money onto a cash shop. I spend money in 14. I spend money in Genshin. If I enjoy the game, I don't mind dropping a bit of money in. But not if it's going to give me a physical advantage or it's going to be the sole way of me actually progressing.
Yeah, they have to deliver a really good game. And that's where I've seen people argue that they announced over a year ago that the game would have a cash shop. So nothing that is coming out now in my mind is new or anything really to be concerned about until we have like more information. But I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody who's on the fence that they have to no. I was like, no, you do what you feel is right. Like it's your money, it's your time. Support, don't support. There's no wrong answer in my mind. They have to earn that level, that degree. But that all then being said is I think that I would not launch a game with a cash shop. I would be open that it's like, hey, we're considering this down the road with cosmetics, and this is what we're considering, but we're gonna just launch the game and then introduce that later. That's what actually 14 did in my mind that I think has made it so successful. And yes, the cash shop isn't in your face all the time, but it's still there, and people spend lots of money on it. There's plenty of things that you can purchase from it that I wish still had a connection to in-game, but I get that it doesn't for that reason. Go ahead, Chaos.
Can you access the cash shop within the game on New World?
We don't know. Most likely, yes.
Because in 14 you can't.
Right.
It's as far away from your face as possible.
Mm-hmm. So
that's how I feel it should be.
Yeah, and I think beyond that, I think the fact that like you get people in, you let them play, and you develop trust, and say, hey, we want to do this, and if you guys like the stuff here, it ends up equaling this other cool stuff for you there. Because I think any adult, anybody who's ever had to work to pay a subscription or to buy a game will recognize that these people aren't working for free. Like they're not working like they might love what they do and have passion for it, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, they need to feed their families. Amazon needs to make a profit. Otherwise they're just gonna be like, why are we throwing money into a pit? Let's not do that. That's why, that's what separates successful businesses from the ones that end up closing down. It's like, well, we threw a lot of money into a hole and nothing came back up. Well, moving on. And then the people we end up having, no matter what, like if it has to be a good game, but let's say if people love it and it is a good game and no one, supports it whatsoever, then it goes away and people are like, what happened? It was such a great game. And it's like, well, like they didn't have the right business model essentially to support the game and the development costs therein. But I think in the end of the day, the next couple months are going to be really interesting. I think July 20th is going to be kind of a critical point for them, and then the release. But it's beyond the release. You got to get a year under the belt. Like I think their first expansion is going to tell a lot overall about the experience with the game itself. But I want to transition now into something I'm very excited about. If you guys have not been following Lost Ark at all, and there's going to be a lot of questions that we're about to ask. But if you haven't been following this game at all, it is now actually being published by Amazon Game Studios. It is coming out in the fall. It is a Korean-based MMORPG. And for the longest time, I have had access and played it in Korea. And it was a really good experience. It was a good experience. I was like, that was fun. I would like to play more. Let me know when it's coming to the West. We now know fall 2021 is there, and you can actually register for a chance to play the technical test as well. So just note that this is an isometric, action MMORPG. It's Korean based, which that could, we could spend all day talking about Korean MMOs and their positives and negatives, but it is both very flashy, and I can speak to its gameplay and say it's really fun. I had no idea what was going on because it was 100% Korean, but it was a fun game, and I'm looking forward to the fact that we'll be able to actually play it this fall. Guys, have you been following this game at all? Do you have any thoughts or questions, or before we kind of get into the big topic of it?
Personally, I have not. This is probably the first time hearing about it at all. Just something that wasn't on my radar. I mean, from the trailer, it looks pretty good, but I want to see how the gameplay is, honestly, because there's certain gameplay aspects that I like a little bit more than others. And if there is like a little small mix of gameplay in this trailer that I'm seeing, I don't know if it's going to be for me because of the way it's set up.
Chaos, how about you?
I've been following this game on and off for a while now. When I first saw it announced in Korea, it was something that instantly caught my eye. Then it went and had that Russian patch that came out, and it was playing over there. I remember Arex actually playing this and promoting it, and I've been quite interested in this. It's not something that I've been overly interested, but I definitely want to try it out. I love the way the world is set up and the environment artistically and aesthetically looks. For me, it is, it's ticking a lot of the right boxes. In terms of gameplay, it's something I probably have to sit down and play myself in order to see how it is and if it suits my style. Is it tab targeting or is it freestyle? If you know,
it's an action MMORPG, so it's like Diablo.
Okay.
So and it's set up in that aspect. So essentially, if you're thinking Diablo 4, thinking Path of Exile, that essentially is set up as an MMORPG. Right. Yeah.
I mean, this could definitely, especially in multiplayer, this could definitely be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the way that those are set up wasn't really my kind of thing. But
right, it's not going to be a game for everybody. It's a free to play, so it's a free to play game, meaning it's got microtransactions. It's got like daily login bonuses. That's what I say. Like one of the things that I've seen a lot of people saying as MMOs are dead because they no longer support the subscription model, and it's a subject that actually I've been thinking about making a video on, but we could kind of somewhat litigate it here. Is that I think it's there. MMOs don't exist in a bubble, and things like Netflix and Game Pass are major competitors to the MMORPG. And right now, as it stands, for the same price as you could get for your MMO sub, you get more content delivered very consistently from something like Game Pass or Netflix, right? So that when it comes down to it, at some point, people hit sub saturation. And we've seen that with MMOs, with the amount of time that's invested into them and more. Now, I do want to highlight a comment by a fellow a contributor on the podcast. We haven't had him on in a while because he works all the time and doing really good work out there in the world. Johnny Mac Games saying, the main area of concern for me is with Lost Ark is the track record of Amazon Game Studios. So you guys have any thoughts on that? Because we were just talking about New World. I thought that's why I wanted to start with New World and transition into Lost Ark.
Not really. Like what? This would be Amazon Game Studios' second big game.
Yeah, they would have two games. They're publishing it. Smilegate's the developer, but go ahead.
Right, but so with one game that hasn't even released yet, and then now they announce another game that hasn't released yet, I don't know what to base that on,
I would assume that he's talking about just the recent drama about the New World Cash App.
And going back to what I said earlier, the cash out doesn't bother me at all. Like I can just ignore it myself, but that's just me.
Yes.
See, I think this game is going to be a really big testament to Amazon. Now, obviously, they haven't released another game, but this is...
They did, but they unreleased it.
Oh, well, yeah. But that was still beta, right? So it didn't really come out. Or was it alpha still? Crucible. But I think this is going to hit like our computers before New World, right? Or is New World coming out first?
New World drops August 31st, and then this is happening fall 2021. So that could be... and then at the same point, are they then also competing against themselves? I think that the fact. Go ahead.
Because if this drops before, then it'll be interesting to see how Amazon handles the servers and the launch of this in the Western market. If it's coming out after, then clearly all eyes are going to be on New World to see how that launches, and then that could adversely damage this, because if they have a horrendous launch on the first one, it won't leave any confidence for the second one. But if they have a really good, successful launch for the first one, it will give hope and confidence for people to try out and dive into the second one.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's going to build up on itself. Anthony's pointing out, and they also canceled the Lord of the Rings game. That wasn't necessarily canceled. Well, that also wasn't really canceled by Amazon. That was Tryon or whoever the Chinese company was, Tencent or something, bought up the developer that was actually working on it with them, and they tried to fix it, but essentially China said nope. So that's like they've had these struggles, right? Especially when we bring up Crucible. The just for a fact that you guys know, they released it. It was released, then they bought it back into beta, and then they made some changes, and then they decided to outright cancel Crucible, which overall I think was the right choice. I tried to play Crucible, and I was like, I wanted to give it a fair shake. I don't really like MOBAs, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shake. And I played it. And then I was like, after I played it and kind of played the classes and build out a guide for it, I had to go play Gears of War 5 and immediately feel just how good that third person shooting is in a game like Gears versus how it felt in Crucible. And I was like, man, that game's in trouble. That game's in serious trouble. And I debated on making a post about it, but then I decided not to, because I don't like to sit here and like, oh yeah, this game's not good. And because then no matter what, there's going to be one hardcore fan out there. There's like, this is the best game ever. And it's like, nah, I don't need to bother with that. I'm not planning on spending more time with it.
I think you would have been safe. I really think on this occasion you would have been safe.
This one time it's like, oh yeah, he really called it right. Like, that's not a fun game. Yeah, it wasn't. It was not a fun game.
I mean, I really tried to like Crucible. I actually spent 3-4 hours on it, just trying to like it. But it felt so limited and rigid, and I don't know, it just wasn't fun. It was missing something. It was missing speed. It was so slow. Like, everything about it you could criticize.
Yeah. I felt like I never felt like I knew if I was hitting somebody or not. Like, I never got the feedback in that regards. That's when I actually, to contrast this a little bit with New World in a way, I went in and played New World, and it felt amazing. Like, it was like, this is really firing on all cylinders. I think they have something here. And not that everybody will share that same opinion, but I was just like, yeah, there was a real big contrast between Crucible and New World for me. And having actually played Lost Ark, I know a lot of people have been waiting for this game for a long time. So then the question regarding Lost Ark is going to be this. This game came out like 2018, and it was like 2019, 2020, 2021. The Lost Ark fan base has been, very supportive of this game, but is it too late for a game like this? Are they going to be able to compete and find an audience in the West years later, or is it just going to be something that kind of comes and goes? Because like Johnny says here, Amazon Studios has a long established history of pulling plug on projects, even though they're the publisher. If they don't see a return on the investment, they will pull funding. I think any company would pull funding off of anything that's just draining money at some point. There's a hard cutoff, but what do you guys think?
I think this is a topic that actually me and my friend were discussing earlier today, in fact, in regards to Lost Ark. Is it too late for them to release it, considering this came out in 2018 in Korea?
Yeah, in Korea,
and it's old. And that doesn't generally translate very well. And there are other precedents like Blade and Soul, which, prove that it's really difficult for a game that's been out for so long, that has all the documentation, all the videos. It's nothing new. And sure, you're going to get that fresh feel when you jump in for the first time. But like yourself, you've been playing it. So even if you jump into this now, sure, you'll actually finally understand what's going on, but it's not new. You've seen it so much, and you've seen it on Twitch, because I've watched this a few times on Twitch and stuff, and I've seen like YouTube videos when I was really following it a year or so ago, and it's not new, and I think that could potentially hurt some of it. Also, there's that whole stigma of it being free to play, which will also cause a problem. Because for me personally, I generally stay away from free to play games, mainly because support generally isn't there. It's not at the level of, say, like Final Fantasy 14, which is a subscription-based model. If you're paying for a subscription, you expect a certain level of support, and you expect to see that content coming every 3 months. With a free-to-play game.
Wow, Shadowlands would be a real stark contrast to that viewpoint right now.
Yeah, well, that's why 14 is the number one game right now, though, right?
Numero uno. Go ahead.
But that's what you kind of expect from a subscription-based model, because that's what you're paying for. You're paying for that continued content. A number of games like Secret World Legends, for example, really good game. If any of you haven't checked it out, it's free to play. I think it's buy to play, or it could be free to play now. The world is really interesting, totally interesting, and it's a really cool game. But because it's free to play, there's like almost no support for it at all. And that's a real shame, because that's an IP that's actually really cool, but Funcom have just completely just dropped it because it's free to play and it's not making enough money as Conan. So they're like, okay, goodbye. But if it was actually making the money, if it had a valid monthly subscription, you could see that game living on for quite a while longer. And I'm just worried that free-to-play games, especially ones like this, may fall into that same trope. It all depends on support and content updates, and if they don't deliver that, it will die.
So are you about to say them?
Yeah, MMO Ronin just kind of took the words out of what I was going to say. Where Chaos, you were talking about, it's an old game, we don't know how it's going to do re-releasing over here. That's exactly what PSO did. Or PSO2 did. It was an 8-year-old game that then finally released over here, and it got blown up. Like, people loved it. I mean, yeah, it was buggy at first on the global release, but after a month or two, it calmed down and everything runs smooth.
You think so? Because every one of my friends, obviously, I'm not saying I have a billion friends, but we were all looking forward to it, and we jumped in for a little bit. And ultimately, the game aged so badly that we just couldn't enjoy it. So our group of 7 or 8 players, we just ended up going elsewhere. What's the numbers for PSO2 in the Western market?
I'd have to try to pull it up somewhere.
I'll find it.
Okay.
Because I'd be interested to see that.
Yeah, I'm not talking New Genesis right now. I'm just talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, graphics wise, sure. Gameplay wise, I mean, it's pretty much the same as it was. New Genesis is pretty much the same gameplay style as what base is. But I think it came over and released globally, and I think it was handled as well as it could have been. Mm-hmm. With such want and need for the game globally. Right. You can only go so far with something on release. You release something and you're going to have problems. I don't know anybody that has not had problems. Mm-hmm. But they're making changes, they're making adjustments. They just updated the graphics engine for the base game even. And I did switch back and forth between the two since release of New Genesis, and they both look great. The updated graphics engine for base looks amazing. But I'm also a little biased because PSO is something or Phantasy Star is just something that I've loved for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have an absolute nostalgia for the series. I actually released my first impressions of it today and started off with a story about my experience growing up and how like Phantasy Star 4 was like a real like key moment in my adolescence. I was like, I distinctly remember that day. And right now, Phantasy Star 2 listed at 16 is some of the most active MMOs, with Final Fantasy 14 being number 1 in that regards. I think we've kind of covered our thoughts on Lost Ark when it comes to that. I want it to be successful, but like I've also seen like servers and population dip down in Korea, and it kind of Korean games kind of have that kind of cycle. They come out in Korea, they make their money there, then they come out in the West and they make their money there, and then they shut down. But we'll ultimately see, because if people are actively playing it and the game's making money, then I think that's where people are going to want more content. You want more content? You want more of this game? We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But Final Fantasy 14, let's shift into that topic real quick, because this week it seems that it is now the number 1 most played MMORPG over World of Warcraft. I think there's a couple of factors that are going on, positive and negative. I think Classic coming out, and the fact that Classic on this list is separate from base World of Warcraft, taking a lot of interest from the WoW base, but the first time, it looks like Final Fantasy 14 is taking the number one spot. I want to go to Sora. How does this news strike you? How does this information strike you? Is this good? Do you see like this is just a temporary kind of blip in the history of Final Fantasy 14?
With the way that the release for what World of Warcraft is waiting on 9.1. I don't play.
They don't even have a date for 9.1.
I don't play WoW, so I don't know. But with that huge lull in content and people trying to find something else to play, they're going to go and be like, oh, well, I know some creators that do play both of these games. Sure, I'll try it, see what it's about. And I think that's what this is right now, is people going, well, I want to play something. And they're just kind of going, well, we'll try a bunch of these different games. And I know one of my favorite creators plays this, or I know one of my friend over here plays both, and I want to try this, and I'll go play with him. I think that's what it is right now. It's just people going, we're waiting for new content for our main game, so we're going to go over here for a little while. Once the content comes out, then we're going to jump again, and you'll see that number just completely flip again.
I don't think it will completely flip. There's a lot of people that are just fed up with Activision Blizzard's antics and the way they're handling the game. I mean, I've been watching Asmongold for a little while now. Crazy guy. But he's like a diehard WoW guy. You show him 14 and he'll start bleeding in his eyes. He can't stand it at all. But even he can see now that the direction that WoW is going in is not great, and it's pushing people away. And if people get pushed away enough and create a new click elsewhere, it's going to be difficult. Well, I wouldn't say difficult, but there's going to be less incentive to come back if they're enjoying what they're doing here a lot more than what they were doing here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can.
And most people can generally only maintain one MMO.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest draw factor here. You've got, Lost Ark coming, which is cool. You've got PSO2 out now, which I think I'm level 8 or 9 in there now, playing it on and off. But my main focus is 14. And if I'm going to dedicate any time to an MMO, it's going to be 14. So the others come secondary. So it really depends with those people that are leaving WoW now. If their focus now becomes 14 or whatever MMO they're playing, will there be enough draw to bring them back? So I'm not so sure it's a clear-cut being a flip. Some will return naturally because it's new content, right? But I don't know if it's going to be as clear-cut as it is, because WoW has a lot of problems at the moment, and they're not addressing them.
How I see this playing out, and it'll be interesting to see if what I see happening ends up, kind of panning out rightly. But historically, WoW would release a big update around a competitor's launch, and we saw that with TBC dropping in June. And in fact, even Ashes of Creation moved their alpha out of the TBC window once that date was announced, so that they, they're not going to be 1-to-1, because no matter what, sunken cost, curiosity, hype, like no matter what, being at a game when it launches can be an exciting and thrilling time to be kind of a part of gaming culture. But question is when is 9.1? And in between June and August is kind of our window for when this update happens. I think 9.1 is going to anybody who's visiting into 14 right now that's invested years is going to go check out 9.1. Even Bellular said that he's absolutely going to play 9.1. Makes sense. The question is there enough content in 9.1, and when is 9.2? So when we look at this aspect, because between now and whenever, like theoretically 9.1 is, if I was Activision, and I don't know if they deserve the Blizzard name anymore, if I was Activision, putting 9.1 right around New World is a really good strategic move, and then marrying that with another 6-month mount, like you subscribe for 6 months, you're going to get this X mount, which was what they did with Shadowlands, and that's just kind of like a business strategy. Like it, I'm not sitting here and saying it's what I like to see. I'm just saying that this just kind of makes sense, right? So they're going to get people, they're going to get them back hooked, probably take some win out of the sales of New World, but what happens between 9.1 and 9.2? And we see a lot of games releasing. If New World continues to deliver content and people keep coming and playing it, that's a really interesting, case scenario. Final Fantasy 14 has Endwalker dropping, and if 9.2 isn't until sometime in 2022, and assuming they go 8 months, 9 months, 10 months between 9.1 and 9.2, like you're giving up a lot of momentum. You're giving 14 the ability to make that establishment, right? Where the people I've talked to is like they've put 15 years. They go and like just do the math on how much they've spent on the game, and it's like, holy crap! Like I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on X game. Am I really willing to leave that level of investment, that community? And that's essentially an opportunity for New World. It's an opportunity for Phantasy Star. It's an opportunity for 14. And I think 14 out of all of that is probably the one who's been playing the fundamentals, the consistency, and delivering the content. Because in the time of Shadowlands to now, we've seen 5.4, 5.5 content, news, community, fan fest. Like there's a clear, like you can see a clear difference maker between the two games. And no, 14 isn't a perfect game. There's things that I think a lot of people, a lot of veterans like myself would love to see with the game, would love to participate in the game itself. But it's so exciting to see a fresh face. And the fact that WoW creators are covering Final Fantasy 14 is massive, because what we're seeing in this is that from a content creation perspective, we're seeing people actually watch that content. 14 is really welcoming to Sprouts. And that's actually a really exciting thing to see, because from a content creation perspective, they have these built-in audiences. And guess what? Turns out a lot of people who play WoW also play 14. Some might consider one thing that they main, but I went and played Shadowlands. Really, it's not a game for me. It's not a game I'm going to go back and play. But at the end of the day, there's a common language that's established, and it's really neat to see how Final Fantasy 14 has, through focus, through content, and through consistency, it has delivered a message that players can say, you can come here, it's safe, you can trust the developers, they're listening. You might not get what you want in 6.1, but Yoshi P will be sure to talk about it in terms of plans, game design, etc. A lot of the complaints, or at least the common difference that I see, that I see going on right now, is that 14's PvP is kind of its weakest aspect. But Yoshi P's already talked about PvP updates coming in Endwalker, and I think that depending on what they deliver, I'm hopeful, because I think that could be something for somebody who's like, well, yeah, this is my PvE game, but I PvP in WoW. It'll be neat to see if that 14 can solve that that problem. And to 14 PvP players out there, I know it exists, but I'll consider 14's PvP a success when you don't have to use third-party tools just to participate, just to find those times when people are actively playing it. And that's what I'm looking forward to and hopeful for what Endwalker brings. It's really cool to see this. I know a lot of people are like, but that site's not the official numbers. Nobody has official numbers. It's so funny that people put so much pressure on it, like the official numbers. Like, what's the official sub count? That information hasn't been has it been over a decade since these companies stopped reporting that information? So Yoshi P knows the number. I'm sure Blizzard, knows the number. At the end of the day, no, the numbers that really matter are I think engagement, and that's what we use as a temperature. And it's really exciting to see, especially as an advocate for Final Fantasy 14 for over the last decade, having seen this shift, even if it's temporary, come to pass. And then along with this shift, I think there will be a little bit of a snapback whenever 9.1 drops. But if 9.2 is just as long, I think a lot of people will be like, cool, I experienced that. That was either the final chapter. I'm really curious to see if somebody comes out after 9.1 and says, that's it. I can finally say goodbye. You know, I've moved my home into this other game, into insert X game here. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like playing the markets. Just kind of got to see what happens.
well played. All right, Chaos. Any final thoughts on Final Fantasy 14?
I think it'll be interesting to see how the next expansion for either of them does. 14's expansion has a lot of hype going into it. It's the end of the Ascian saga.
Mm-hmm.
It's going out on a massive high, and it's also starting a new chapter in 6.1.
Yeah.
9.1 for WoW needs to deliver. It needs to captivate the player base and bring them back and get them engaged again. I think if it doesn't do that, then there's going to be dire consequences for WoW going forward. Because one thing that you can say with 14 is if things are bad, the developers might not be able to fix it instantly, but a next iteration of that same content, they work on it and change it and take that feedback and deliver. A prime example of this is Eureka with Baldessian Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Baldessian Arsenal. Absolutely fantastic piece of content. One of my favorite dungeons in 14, hands down. But the only way you could participate in that was through Discord. You were pretty much limited to finding a group in Discord that was scheduling runs and joining it. And that was a lot of problem because it alienated a lot of people. And, you know, I remember Yoshi P was even actually crying when he felt he failed the community when he got the feedback from the Western market. And he changed it for subsequent ones, for Bozja, for example. Now it's, you know, duty-based. And, you know, it's that process of listening to your community, reacting to it, and delivering on that promise. And from what I'm hearing from WoW, they're not doing this. And they're listening to the community and saying, yeah, but we know better. And then going down that route. And
yeah, you think you do, but you don't. There's so many quotable lines from them that I think that's one of the things that people are frustrated with is from that, you know, like, what is happening? What is happening? Like, oh, and then they have these interviews and it's like that feels so disconnected from what the temperature read is, what the people are feeling is. And even if what the people feeling isn't ultimately true, because I live in the world of development, people will say, hey, it'd be really great if X, but then when you listen to it, it becomes a level of understanding. It's like, oh, it turns out they want X because Y actually isn't working. If we fix Y, it takes care of that. So if I just listen and do the thing that they say, oftentimes you don't end up at the right, you know, location. But if you actually hear what somebody's saying and you put thought into it and say, hey, we looked into it, well, it turns out that actually is not how it's supposed to be. But we found this, we fixed this. How does it feel now? Oh my gosh, so much better. Okay, everybody wins, you know, in that regards. And that's where I think I feel heard in 14, even if like there's things that I want and have yet to see, but at the end of the day, like they deliver on so many things for me. But when I was playing WoW, I just felt isolated and alone. And I was like, oh, this sucks. Why am I here? And that was just my personal experience. I know that people obviously have different experiences with different games in the long run. Any thoughts that we need to finish on the Final Fantasy topic before we dive into Phantasy Star?
Other than the fact that you've got a phone, right?
Yeah. Don't you have phones?
Sorry, couldn't resist.
It's great.
The only thing that I'll say though is that the way that Yoshi P, the development team, and everything for 14, I think that they view the community more as a family to them, or more, you know, hey, I'm here to play with my friends. I want to make sure my friends are having a good time. I want to make sure my family is having a good time. And if something's wrong, they'll let me know and I'll do my best to fix it. Whereas from what I've heard with WoW and everything, it's just like, you're just a number in their pocket, you know? Oh, you're paying to play the game? Awesome. You're number 10, you know, thanks for your money. Like, that's the way I feel that, or hear and read and everything like that, that it seems that they're going.
To piggyback off that, to give a real life example of what you just said, in one of the fan festivals, it wasn't the first one, I think it might have been the first one, someone had a problem with his account and he shouted out that he hasn't been able to log in for 2 weeks or something like that when Yoshi P was on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And he called someone over on stage to go and sort out his problem there and then.
Mm-hmm.
That's the level of one-to-one that you have with 14.
Right.
In WoW, it would have been contact customer support and raise a ticket and we'll look into it.
And then not hear anything for a year.
Yeah. But that action from Yoshi P right there is the difference between how one side respects and sees its player base compared to the other.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that overall they did fix the support issues with Square Enix as a whole, though. Like the fundamental, like tracking it back, that's a beautiful thing. It should never have to have come to that. And
Of
so
course,
it's like, yeah. So that, like Final Fantasy, like Square Enix's support side is not the best. I've had good experiences and bad experiences, and but like what I judge them on is, do they find the problems, solve the problems, and then new issues are the new ones. Every year at FanFest, every expansion, there's been an issue outside of like Shadowbringers was great, but then prior to that, I remember the issues with Stormblood and Heavensward, so that the point where it's like, but it wasn't the same problem each time. It was a new problem. They found it, they fixed it, they took the feedback, and then essentially they're in a spot now that they're just firing on all cylinders. And that's one of the things I think that's helped them deliver where Blizzard hasn't, where COVID has hit everybody. 14 still put out content, and World of Warcraft didn't. And that's just essentially where it all exists. Okay. Now let's go ahead and dive into our final topic. In this case, Phantasy Star New Genesis launch week. Guys, it's here.
Yeah.
New Genesis, a whole new start, new engine. I want to know what you guys think about it. I'm going to start with you, Sora.
It is gorgeous, to say the least. It did take me a little bit to get my graphics synced correctly. I was on Facebook, Twitter, and everything like that, and people were having the same kind of issues where things won't render correctly and everything like that, and they're getting all riled up about it. Best thing I can say, if you do have a rendering issue after you change your graphic settings, just log out, log back in again. It'll get fixed. Doing that, or even going to one of the Rooker devices, switching from NGS to PSO2 base and then back again, will also fix it. I get it should be something that just works, but it is launch week. Mm-hmm. There's going to be problems. The lag issue right now, for one thing. But they are having an emergency maintenance on that right now, or it's scheduled or something. It might be going on right now. To help fix that lag issue, and among other issues, they said. So it'll be fixed. Just give them faith, give them a little bit of leeway, give them a little bit of time. It's a brand new engine. They're kind of reinventing, or not reinventing, but they're innovating on how games are being played with the way that this works. Being able to switch between the two, keeping your aesthetic, keeping all of your stuff, being able to switch items back and forth, things like that. Like, I don't know of really many or any other games that have done something like this. A whole new overhaul.
They haven't.
Exactly.
Destiny just straight up deleted content. Final Fantasy 14 destroyed the world. WoW destroyed the world, and essentially eventually brought back Classic because people were like, how can I have that experience? This is historic.
This is an innovation, and it's the first of its kind. So give it time. It's going to take a little bit. Be patient. I know that's asking a lot from a lot of people to just be patient, but it's week 1. It's what, day 3? Like, just wait. It'll get better. I hate saying that, but what else can you do? You can send them your feedback, but don't be angry about it. Just say, hey, This is an issue I've run into. I know a couple other people that have run into this issue. If you can take a look at it, it would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Instead of going in there and just yelling about it. Because you start yelling about it, they're not even going to look at your comment. They're not even going to look at what you're trying to tell them. Be like, oh, this guy's being super rude. Get out of here.
What do you think,
What type of lag were people experiencing? Because I'll be honest with you, when I played it day one, I played it in the evening of my time. The majority of the ships were full. So
yeah, they were.
The one I went into was Answer, which was normal or congested, but it wasn't full. That was the only one I had available at the time. So that's where I loaded in. I've had no graphical issues, no lag issues. I think the tutorial lasted way too long. But I've personally experienced absolutely zero issues. I can run it on Ultra and no problems at all. I know a friend of mine who was on Discord with me at the time when I was streaming it he was saying he was having lag issues. But in the UK, I've had absolutely nothing. It's been flawless for me, honestly.
I've run into lag issues. I've run into like sometimes waiting for something to process before it actually does what it does. So it's like, okay. And then I'm waiting for that check mark to fill on the quest. I haven't witnessed anything that's game breaking because it's like, yeah, it's people are excited. They want to dive in. It's, you know, the fact that I didn't get kicked out at all. I would rather me sit at a PC that's just waiting for its thing to do its thing rather than, game crash, etc. So my overall experience has been really positive playing on Xbox and PC. I've been really positive. Like I have nothing but good things to say about my experience, knowing that the lag and all of this stuff is going to be resolved because this isn't a brand new game. This isn't from a studio that doesn't know what they're doing. This is from a studio that's rebuilt this whole like thing and during COVID and has a roadmap for more content. So I have a lot of faith. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe it doesn't work today, or maybe I'm having a little bit of lag today. Turns out, tomorrow, perfectly fine.
Right.
And yeah, like with any launch, like I see, plenty of people are like, I have yet to see an MMO or an online game launch without any sort of issue. And until that day comes, like I'm built in to predispose to like, yeah, all right, like if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll come back in a week. I'll come back in 2 weeks,
Right.
See, I don't think it's so much PSO launching Rocky that's the issue. I think it's more the fact that you've had Avengers, Fallout 76, Cyberpunk 2077, Outriders. People are just sick of jumping into games that don't work. And the more games that launch in a rocky state, the more those tempers and that aggression is going to rise and rise until it does topple. But it's essentially, everyone knows that MMOs, when they launch, you've got the mass rush of everyone jumping in, especially on a free-to-play game. You're going to have everyone and their grandma and their pet poodle jumping on, playing the game. But so I expected problems, which is why I was absolutely flabbergasted when I had zero problems. So good on them, at least for me.
Yeah.
But
like my issues, I wouldn't even classify as game breaking, which
right.
Outriders bug, item bug that's a game breaking kind of thing. Like that's something
just all the issues. It's just all the other games that have accumulated that kind of resentment towards releasing games that aren't working out the door, and games that are coming out now, no matter how small the issue is, are going to be on, they're going to see the brunt of that because it's just pent up frustration. So I think that's where the hostility is coming from more than the actual game having a couple of days of a rocky start.
Now Martian says Rift actually launched without issues. Interesting. I did not know. I remember playing Rift at launch. I thought I believe I remember having issues with Rift at launch, but I can't sit here now. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it was great, and then no one played it. No, it's not. I guess maybe people still play Rift, but
there's 4 people on servers, right?
I guess so.
The biggest issue I had so far with PSO2 is, or with NGS is, sometimes the damage numbers won't register.
Yeah.
Or my hits won't register for like a minute or two. So I'll just keep hitting things. It's like, oh, look, free DPS phase. And then they'll all register at once, and then the thing will be dead. Like,
I've never experienced that at all
Yeah.
in the 4 hours that I played.
Well, beyond that, at 4 hours though, they're in maintenance to fix essentially the lag issue. They were able to patch things, work on the game. We're getting updates in July, August, this fall, this winter.
That's
like anybody was like, "Oh yeah, I had a bad experience 5 minutes into this game. Game's dead." It's like you whatever. Like are you really a gamer or are you a drama gamer? It's like, all right, yeah, drama gamers, man. I tell you,
that is one thing I have seen though is people complaining that there isn't enough of a content, or there isn't enough content. There is enough content. Like, look, okay, yeah, sure, there's not enough content right now, but they do have a content map.
How much content did it launch with?
Like level caps 26 classes, story.
Right now, level cap's 15.
15.
No, it's 20.
Oh, no,
level
it's 20. Beta was 15.
Beta was 15. Get your facts right.
I misspoke.
You know what I mean? So how long is the story? How long does it take to finish the story? Or has no one finished the story?
I haven't finished it yet.
I'll let you know when I finish the story. My biggest limitation is I don't think that's the problem. I have any issue with the content that launched. In fact, it feels really solid as somebody who plays 14, as somebody who plays, I've been playing Final Fantasy 11, like as somebody who plays other games, like honestly, I'm like, this is great. I want to get all of my classes to level 20 before Braver drops in August, and then Bouncer later this fall. Like, okay, cool. And then the level cap goes up to 35. Like this, it feels like it's such this great experience that I don't feel like I have to rush. And I appreciate that so much. If the level cap was 80, I tell you, like, I would, be like,
yeah, I'd be struggling myself.
You just hit the nail on the head, though, didn't you? Right there. You just hit it right there. It is people rushing the content that are complaining. You know, people, you can never make enough content for everyone. Like, how long did it take you to finish the Shadowbringers campaign?
35 hours.
I mean, how many days did that roughly take you?
Being that I was streaming and doing content over about 5 days.
Right. Because it took me 2 days to finish that. We were playing for like 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
But that's on me, right? If I burn through the content, no game can provide you with an infinite amount of content. It's going to have a limited amount. And if you're burning through everything the game's got to offer in 3 days, 4 days, playing, 20 hours a day, and some people won't even sleep. That's not the developer's fault.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, that's one of the things that like kind of bring back WoW. Like, I think that's one of the things that WoW cursed like these genres with in the moment, that mindset of the real games at endgame, the real game, like rushing to cap. It's one of the things I respect about that the 14's raids aren't as a part of the expansion. They're weeks later so that people can enjoy the story. People will still rush, and that's all well and good and on them. But that's one of the things I really appreciate about Final Fantasy 11 is the end game starts at level 1. It's like you literally like, yeah, you're here. Like it's all about like, and that's why I hope and I look forward to the future of Final Fantasy 14. But even with Phantasy Star, like you have weapon upgrades. There's all kinds of like crafts and things that you can kind of try to perfect your build with it. The fact that it starts at 20, like in my mind, if you think of the end game, it's like, well, going forward in a year, in 2 years, when the level cap is 45 or 50 or whatever, as they kind of do that, like if they build out these end games that happen at these different intervals, like level 20, we've got this content, boom boom, now we've added more content, more zones that take place in this. As a player who's coming in a year's time or 2 years time, like as a veteran, that I could just sit back and say like, man, you've got a lot of really cool stuff that is consistently evolving. You don't have to rush to level 80 to have the real fun. The real fun starts like when you're just running around the field and fighting monsters and you're farming and you're doing these different things and you're learning this game. You have the story that drives you through it. Like, I think they're setting themselves up for a real strength. And that's one of the things that when we look at MMOs, as a whole. And yes, the developers classify this as an MMO. They classify Destiny as an MMO. I've seen people tweet out like it's an MO. I don't care what you think about it. Call it whatever you want. It's a great fun game. What I look at it is that I think when we saw the success of WoW, I think it's fundamentally held back game design. And even though 14 used WoW as its model because to save itself and to bring itself into that, I have to say, like at its core, I really think that the next decade of MMORPGs is really going to kind of take a whole new step, because just like where you have a band that has a one-hit wonder, they can never, their biggest hit happened right at the front. World of Warcraft just came in, changed the game. Everybody just tried to copy them, and the only one that's been really successful has been Final Fantasy. I think that when we look at the next 10 years, with Phantasy Star, I think we're setting ourselves up to be able to say, like, but what can we do different? Like, how can we make our own game? We don't have to adhere to this monolith that is WoW, World of Warcraft, where they got up to 12, 17 million subscribers, to the point where when you look at those numbers that big, it's no wonder everybody was like, yep, that's the format. And then here I am playing Final Fantasy 11 going like, if only, yeah, in that regards.
But did you see in the chat, Asmongold is trying Final Fantasy 14?
I'd missed that. Where is that? Is he playing it right now?
It's by Tyler Mayer. Asmon literally just tweeted he's going to try 14.
What's up, Tyler? Hold on. We're gonna take a pause break. I'm gonna pause this because is that in fact breaking news? Let's see.
That could be breaking. That would be huge, especially if he likes it.
I think outside of that, like if he gets teamed up with the right people and plays it not according to how the community wants him to play it, that's going to be fantastic.
I'm not so sure that comment you highlighted is.
I will try Final Fantasy 14.
No, the one up top, Tyler Mayer.
Oh yeah, I just saw that one, so I was like, yeah. So cool, sweet.
I will try 14. There you go. Breaking news.
Welcome.
And
this is a big deal.
Honestly, I think the only way that he's going to enjoy anything 14 is if he level boosts. Because going through the beginning stuff, he's just going to be like, this is dumb. I don't want to do this.
I agree. Realm Reborn is really bad.
Like somebody needs to just gift him a level boost on a Dark Knight and a story skip to Shadowbringers.
Guys, be sure to follow Chaos Prime on YouTube, by the way, and on Twitter. So you can see his thing, Chaos Prime Z, on Twitter and YouTube. This is freaking exciting, dude. That's an epic game-breaking moment, historical moment. Yes, Asmon is going to play Final Fantasy 14. I do, like we talked about this, like he should boost. I don't care, just get him into the content. He doesn't have to worry about the story. Nobody cares. There's going to be some people out there that say he absolutely has to play through the story and experience the game and appreciate it the way that I do.
That's what New Game Plus is for.
That's what New Game Plus is for. If you like it and you're like, what else is there? New Game Plus it. Like, it's such a smart feature for a game as that. So I think we actually do have a call-in. We do have a call-in, but before we get and bring them onto the show, guys, the top pin link, if you want to come comment on anything we're talking about today, you can join in if you got a good mic. Sorry, you're about to say something. I do want to make sure we wrap up our PSO thoughts.
Yeah, somebody gift that man a level 70 skip for Dark Knight and a story skip. Just send it to him. Here you go. Use this code. Have fun. Like, honestly, I would right now.
There you go. Chaos, any final thoughts on Phantasy Star?
I'm really enjoying it. I hope it develops and delivers in a good way, because my initial impression outside of the tutorial, which almost put me to sleep, was really good. It ran smooth, it played great, and I really enjoyed everything about it. The combat, the ability to glide, the open world surroundings as opposed to the instanced areas of PSO2 original. to me, it was just brilliant. And just being able to run around and just find enemies and fates. I'll call them fates because I'm used to that in 14. It was great. And then running into a big boss, which looked at me and said, "You're not supposed to be here." And it was dead. I miss those moments from Final Fantasy 11. But I have high hopes for PSO2 NGS because it delivered for me.
All right, guys. This is we're gonna go to do a call-in show. I'm gonna bring in Artemel Khan. I'm sorry butchering your name. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in again. We've had you on the show before. You're always very insightful. What are we talking about?
Hey guys. So I was actually listening to the conversation about content, and I wanted to pose a question to everyone on that I always pose to friends in Discord and when I have this sort of philosophical discussion, which is how much of the responsibility is on the player for content, because I feel like as we have MMOs that have spanned what we could probably consider a generation these days, you can't compare new games that come out to them. You can't say, look at the content that this new game brings, but people expect it. They expect New World to have the same amount of content as WoW or 14, even though it just launched. And it's always a really interesting conversation to me when people say it needs more, it needs more, it needs more, but it's like there's this double-edged sword where you have to pay for it, you have to support it, you have to play it and put your time into it, and then it will get more, but then no one wants to do that because they want more now. So it's sort of this thing that it's a community that eats itself, in a way. So I just think it's always a really interesting conversation to have, especially around new game launches and talking about content.
I'm going to go with Chaos to take on that question. I think that's such a really great, just game design and philosophical question when it comes to how we take on games. Chaos, why don't you take the first stab at this one?
Cool. So this leads back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, as opposed to subscription-based and free-to-play model, where a free-to-play model needs funding and support in order to allow the game to continue its existence, whereas a subscription-based model just feeds off the subscription, and that's how they continually fund the game. Now, if a MMO is coming out, me personally, I would expect at least the main campaign to be there. NGS launched, when I was looking at NGS, it didn't say it was going to launch incomplete or half the game was going to be there. Just NGS is launching on the 9th, go play it. I at least expect the base campaign to be there. I haven't played all the way through, so I don't know how much of the base campaign is there. But like in A Realm Reborn, I expect the whole of the Realm Reborn campaign to be there, which it was. Everything else that came after it was additional content, which we paid for with subscriptions. In terms of enough content, I think right now for NGS, it's a mixed bag. From what I'm hearing from the panel and from what I'm hearing and just reading online at the moment, it's missing some fundamental stuff. But I think as a free-to-play game, it's got enough to get it off the road. See, most people look at these games, MMOs in particular, the free-to-play ones, and are comparing them to subscription models. You can't do that. You need to compare them for like with another free-to-play game, because they don't have the funding that a subscription-based model has. Final Fantasy 14, when it came out, was £40, I believe it was, £45 in the UK when it first came out, and that's all sales that are generating before you even jump into the game. That's guaranteed revenue coming in, and then you've got the subscription on top of that after your first month. So you can't compare the actual level of content from a paid product to a free product, because free will always be less. They will release, in my opinion, the minimum viable MVP and build from there. because if they try to build everything, they'll run out of budget, and then they'll be in a position where they'll be, hey guys, we've got like half the game here. We couldn't finish the other half of the game, but we're going to release this anyway, and when you give me money, I'll release the rest. They don't want to do that, so they release a portion of the game. It's free. Go in, enjoy yourself, play the campaign. As long as the updates for this come in a timely manner for the free-to-play games, you won't notice it. You're always going to get those people that know life the games, and those people that know life it will run out of content no matter what they're playing. 14, WoW, Elder Scrolls, you name it. They're going to run out. And, for those people, there's no helping those. But for the average casual person, the average gamer, it's enough, especially if you're not paying anything for entry. So I think where PSO2 NGS is right now, I'm just going to refer to it as NGS for short. I think it's in a good place.
Call it New Genesis, like NGS. Like, yeah, it's such a mouthful. I just need Star Online 2 New Genesis. What's the difference? It's the new one.
I think it's in a good place, and I think where it's at with the level of content it's got is acceptable. The problem is people are comparing it to a paid product, and that's just silly. I don't think you should. I don't understand why anyone would do that, other than the fact that reading is pretty popular these days.
No,
it's very popular and very profitable to be just constantly mad. Like it's like it gets. That's the problem in social media though. It's like as a game of attention, it's like being mad, having a like, oh, this is the worst, or etc. Like that's what's going to get people connected, in that regards, like, because they'll either agree or disagree. They're either mad with you or they're like, they're not mad like you. They're mad in different ways. They're mad at you or something like that. So
right.
It's a fundamental thing. That's why it's like content. I'm going to let Soro answer, and then I'll give my final thought before we wrap the podcast.
Now, the way that I've always seen any game, MMO, first player or single player, multiplayer, whatever, is that it's meant to be enjoyed in periods, not binged for 3 days straight. Like, it could also just be that dad mind coming in as well. I play a couple hours at night. That's it. Like, I have enough content to last me through the different games that I do play for months. Like, I could set 14 aside right now completely until Endwalker comes out and still have enough in other games that I play to last me till Endwalker. Like, I don't sit here for 8-9 hours like some people do to just get to the end and then be mad that I'm at the end. Like, I'm here to enjoy my journey through it. But again, I guess I'm in the minority on that one. I don't know. People do what they want to do, and you can't really help that. People will be mad about everything. Doesn't matter. I'm mad that my chair is nice. I don't know. Somebody's got to be mad at something.
You're too joyful, Soro. You're too beautiful. You're too beautiful for this world.
Well, I do have a puppy in my lap. Yeah. So
that's like find something that brings you joy. For me, like I've expressed this multiple times. Like when people talk about glamour being the true end game and some of these things, like those aren't systems that speak to me. That's not content that speaks to me. I always kind of gravitate towards the friend game being the true end game. So back to the kind of the original comment, or the question is like, how much content, like what level of responsibility did the player have, etc. I think immense amount of responsibility. I think personal responsibility is a real key thing. And if you can, as a human being, kind of learn to own that, like, I've accepted in life that I am only able to control me, and I might have influence, when it comes to my kids and like how, and how I teach and things like that. But when it comes down to it, like if I overconsume a game and I outpace the content because, it's good, or I feel like I can make content off of it, or if I feel that, there's a weird, external pressure. I'm definitely somebody who has talked about how I put pressure on myself at times, and sometimes I look back and go, that was good, or yeah, that really wasn't healthy. Maybe I played that game for 18 hours that day. That day, it happens less and less now, but I know there were definitely gaming sessions where it's like, yeah, like, what'd you do this weekend? I did nothing but game. And I look back on those weekends fondly, but also those aren't happening anytime soon for the future. I look at it in terms of a balance, in terms of curated versus sandbox. And what I continue to espouse is that I think the game that I find the most enjoyment out of it is a game that offers an approach and content and style that has a lot to bring. I think the theme park model is fundamentally flawed. And the reason it rose to popularity is because it has that dopamine hit that makes it easy to get in and feel like you're able to play. Like, I left Final Fantasy 11, because I felt like I couldn't get anything done back in the day before they brought in level sync, because I was trying to play, and there was a time where you could only party up with people within a certain level range. Otherwise, you're kind of SOL. You got to wait, or you got to solo, and that was sometimes negative progress. So there was definitely an appeal of the theme park being that you could kind of get in and have something to do. I think that was important, especially for replay outside of here's my main goals. And then vice versa. I think what's lacking in current games is sandbox elements. Once people are in and hooked, I'm sitting down talking to Chili before Shadowbringers, and he's like, I've cleared all the savages. I've done everything. I've got everything to cap. I've done everything that this game has asked for. I've crafted. I've gathered. There is nothing for me to achieve. I've achieved it all. And then Nero wept or whoever, Alexander wept because there's no more kingdoms left to conquer or something like that. When I look at that, I go, it's like, well, the sandbox, role play, 14 has sandbox elements, and I think that 14 would benefit from them. Eureka is a good sandbox. Bosha is a good sandbox in certain respects. And I would like to see a balance between the theme park and the sandbox model, because then I think what makes the most fun, the most memories, are the memories in which that we create for ourselves outside of that curated experience. Because 14 does a great job at having that experience, putting you on that track, delivering you that story. You come home, you get off that train, and you're like, that was awesome. I'm really thankful for that. And then essentially, if it was like, well, great, now you can play. Star Wars is a great example as a franchise that has let people play in that sandbox. And because of that, it's become this bigger thing. I think when it comes down to it, I don't think the train should take you that long. I don't think the curated experience and content needs to be designed out for that 60, 80-hour day, because nobody, as we become adults, as we've gotten jobs, as we become more busy with life and expectations and responsibilities, honestly, I stand by what I said. I'm relieved that PSO2 is launching at level 20 cap. That is a plus. That is a real win, because that's something that's achievable and that I'm going to feel satisfied. And then I'm going to ask for more. And guess what? They've already said more is coming. I'm like, great. I think having that variety in my life is important to me. I've spoken to that multiple times. I know that I've, had big YouTubers and content creators specifically advise me just to do one thing. Just focus down on one thing, just focusing on one thing, and you'll grow. And then once you get to, 100,000 subscribers, 500, it's a never ending game. Once you get to 500,000 subscribers, once you get to your 1,000,000 subscribers, then you could branch out. I go, I'm going to branch out now, because if they're not going to want to see it now, I don't care if they're going to want to see it then. I'm not trying to build myself up as a career content creator in that regards. So right. I think I look at playing with friends as kind of the key aspect, having conversations about those games, and honestly playing in the sprints that I can. Right now, I don't have a lot of game time. I sat down and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a podcast today. I don't know if we'll do a podcast next week. Actually we won't, because I'm going to be, Julie and I are escaping to a cabin for a couple of days just to get away from technology and just to kind of relax. It's been a go kind of life cycle for us for the last 5 years, but that's just where I'm at. Hopefully does that answer your question at all? Because I love the question. I think it's fantastic, but yeah, I want to let you have the final thought. We also have another call in, and then we'll wrap up after this one.
I think it was a question that was sort of more like answering it as an exercise rather than needing an answer, which I love those kinds of questions. So I was just interested in everyone's thoughts and opinions on it, and as always, I appreciate getting to jump on.
Dude, thanks for being here. Thanks for weighing in. We're going to bring in somebody else now, but we appreciate you. And guys, again, we try to do more of these podcasts as kind of a call-in shows here at the end. So we'll go ahead and say remove, and let's go ahead and add you. Welcome, Anon J. You're live with us here today, and I love your Michelangelo. Unless my eyes deceive me, and that's not orange.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
Cowabunga, dude.
Dude, what's your comment? What's your question?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Lost Ark because Chaos brought a really good point up about the free-to-play model and people's expectancy for content. Because I think at this point in time, there are a lot of players who are very absorbed in the idea of, well, if this is a free-to-play game, I should be able to do anything I want to at any time, and they shouldn't, be able to ask for money and whatnot outside of, the cash shop because that's quote unquote unfair. But in reality, it really goes to show that people's investment in a game is more visible through cash shop items because, of course, you need funding in order to keep a game going and progressing. So I wanted to make sure that whenever I go into another free-to-play game, because I've played New Genesis, I've played Final Fantasy 14, and I've had experiences with a lot of other free-to-play games, which is, it's not to my liking, or if I don't want to support it, you don't put money into it. But I think as players, there are a lot of us that have to get used to the idea of putting financial investment into a free-to-play game, not because they're trying to strong arm us into getting the best things through money and financial investment, but because we like the game enough to actually voluntarily put money in it when we don't have to.
What's your line? Like, because I'm with you in that regards. Like, I don't feel ever, like if a cash shop makes me feel FOMO or pressure, it's a game that I don't stick with. But if a cash shop is there to enhance my experience, then as I love the game, I'm like, oh, absolutely. I find that like love of the game ends up being kind of directly connected to if the game is good and players are having fun, they recognize that it needs support. Like no one's like, yeah, there's freeloaders, but we'll just count that. Like, I'm not going to judge them because they're going to play this game for free. But at the core of it, like I see that, and that's one of the things we see with Patreon, with like Twitch, like subs, and with like YouTube memberships. Like there's a willingness within, I think, gaming and gaming culture to offer that level of support if the content is good, right? Like if you produce good content, this games, content creators, like there's a willingness that people step up and support, and that and that's because they recognize like, hey, why'd that one YouTuber stop making content? Well, it turns out it's not. You don't really make as much money as people think you make off ads. Like, like, oh, well, at some point, like my kids wanted to eat. My wife said, get a real job, and I either have to make a choice. It's like, yeah, like as a side hustle or as a part-time content creator, it's nice to sit here and be able to like buy the nice diapers because you guys watch like a video. Like, thank you guys, but where is the line in the sand for you? Like, what is that where that cash shop becomes egregious?
My experience has been with different cash shops. I think 14 is a very good example of like the positive end of paying for certain content, because I'm not of the mindset of paying for level boost that much. That's just a personal thing.
Yeah.
But my line comes in more so for different gear that may have higher stats or any specific item that allows you to just bypass all the difficulty that other players have to go through. Like, if any mount that you need to get for a raid was now just available in the cash shop and you don't have to do that. That seems a little unfair to me, at least. But as long as what you're paying for is what you get, and I mean by, reducing the RNG factor, that's where my line is, because there have been a lot of cosmetic based items in other games that are more so still tied to RNG. So you're paying for the possibility of getting an item, not for the assured ability to get an item. So you're running a lottery, and that's not in my personal interest, and that puts a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, well said. Chaos or Sword, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
He's a simple man, and we love him. Chaos, you got any final thoughts on this one?
No, I think everything that needed to be said has been said and covered. As long as the cash shop isn't intrusive, I think it's okay. It's when it becomes intrusive that I have a problem with it. It's when everything is locked behind the cash shop is when I have a problem with it. Like Destiny, for example.
Destiny did it, etc. Yeah, and that's also like where it's like you kind of see. I think Activision more than anything else, and that's where it's just like where Activision is like we're really more interested in the whales, the people who are going to spend money. Yeah, we lost subscribers, but we made more money. Like that's a red flag. Like in my mind.
But there is more microtransactions now in Destiny than there was when Activision was there.
Right. But are those microtransactions egregious and in your face?
Yeah.
Oh, for you? Okay, cool. Like I'm not actively playing right now, so it's like yeah.
I mean, I see people running around with really cool, shiny looking skins for their weapons, and the only way you can get that because they took away your engrams that you got when you leveled up. They for example, shaders. Yeah. Shaders, which used to cost 20 bright dust, 30 bright dust, now cost 300 bright dust, but your supply of them has cut down exponentially. Your access to glamour, changing your suits, is 2 full sets per gaming season. All the armor sets that you can get in the shop are pretty much paid for. There's nothing there for you to actually go in and earn.
But you can't get a gun like a gun, an actual gun. That's
not yet. Only in the Korean one.
Oh wow, that's gross.
In the Korean one, you know where Ikora stands in the back, right opposite her. There's actually a stall there where you can go and buy real weapon exotics for real money.
I don't like that. I don't like that one bit.
I mean, that's what Xur's for. You just go to Xur, see what he has, and then
you use in-game currency.
Right.
Yeah, I think cash shops are a real fine line in the sand, and I know there's an anti-MTX crowd out there probably screaming at us in the comments when this video gets posted. Speaking of which, guys, if you haven't followed over on Ginger Prime Clips, our podcast highlights and clips are actually over on that channel. Over 100 of you have found it. It is part of the channel page as well, so be sure to go find that. As that is another channel that I make. But yeah, it just ends up being a little bit like more bite-sized consumable over there. So if you're still listening and you have yet to subscribe over on Ginger Gaming or Ginger Prime Clips, would love to see you over there as well. But I know the anti-MTX crowd definitely screaming at us. It's like, no, like just the fact that we support it means that's the industry. Like if you're holding out that a subscription-based MMO is going to come out and be a AAA game, and it's going to just be on your subscription, etc. You know what? I wish I could be you because I just don't see that coming back ever. And I think when we talked about earlier about theme park MMO design games and stuff like that design, like Game Pass is more of a competitor to the subscription-based MMO. Netflix is. And, if you think of the theme park, Game Pass is kicking every theme park MMO's butt because it delivers amazing content every freaking month for the same subscription price. And it doesn't have to be like a multiplayer game or not. Like I've been playing MLB The Show. I played Outriders on Xbox. I play, it's like ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. So at the end of the day, something, I don't think we found the right model, but I just honestly, the fact that we have like 14 still a subscription and WoW still technically is a subscription is interesting, but I just don't see another subscription only MMO launching unless it's coming off the heels of something like a Final Fantasy from Square Enix or a World of Warcraft 2 from Blizzard. Like there's such a barrier for New World could not launch with a subscription in this market because nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows this game. Nobody's been playing New World 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. since they were a kid. And now they want to play online with their friends. Like that just doesn't happen. And And we got to be careful by cash shops because it is a conversation. It is a direct feedback loop. And if all of a sudden the coolest gear, the coolest guns, the coolest whatever has to be paid for, that's why I'm like, just give me a buy to play model. I'm more happy with a buy to play. But then at the same time, I go play Phantasy Star Online too, and I feel like they have a really good experience. But they do have boosters, they do have these things that are these sins, etc. So it's like, I think it comes down to trust. I think it comes down to the love of the franchise. And if you have those things, then we're either excusing the actions or we trust that our money is being well invested and spent, and we want to participate in that economy. It's an interesting question, interesting perspective, and Ananja, thanks so much for coming on and weighing in on that. I'm gonna say, and any final thoughts before we remove you from the show? Not because you did anything wrong, just as
no, you're fine. You're fine.
You're great. You're welcome back. Well, there's an option for kick, and at least it says remove from stream. And I was like, I don't know about kick. I don't know about that. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, other than the cash stop thing, I think that's where PSO2 has the leg up on Lost Ark. Not that they'd be directly in competition with one another, just because PSO2 has a dedicated player base and has history with its player base versus Lost Ark, which is, even though it's been out for 2 years, it still has a bit of reputation for when are we getting this game, when is it coming out, and is it still going to be good when it comes out? And
is there something to follow up the content? In 2 years, is there more content for Lost Ark? Because there's got to be for PSO2. I know they've only talked about 1 year, but I know there's another year.
Yeah, because I think they'll either be playing catch up or trying to level out with other MMOs just so the competition stays there. Because I think Lost Ark is going to have to hit the ground running when release date comes, just because we know about the game. It's been out for a while, and people are eager to play it, and you want to get those people in while you can before that interest dies out.
100%. Well, Anand, thanks so much for hopping into the show. I appreciate all our call-ins today. I like doing that. We're going to keep doing that. So thank you all for tuning in live. Be sure to subscribe to Ginger Gaming Radio and Ginger Prime, so that way you don't miss a show. Chaos, I'm going to let you have it, and then we'll go Soro, and then we'll wrap up.
I did have one question I wanted to ask both of you two.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So PSO2 has boosters, but no one's really talking about them. No one really cares because, as Brian said, there's that trust element, whatever it is. People aren't talking about it, moaning about it, complaining about it. If New World didn't say anything about the boosters, if they didn't they just let Sleeping Dogs die, as they say, and then just added them in at a later date as something that came 2 months after launch, do you think it would have had as big as an impact as it has negatively now as it would then?
I'm gonna let Sora take it first.
If after 2 months they were just slide them in without saying anything,
slide into your DMs
without saying anything.
I mean, it's going to be in the patch notes and stuff, obviously, but it's just going to turn up, and it's just something that they're introducing rather than, hey, we're releasing a new game. Oh, by the way, we're also adding boosters, and we're talking about that before the game ever comes out.
If it was a couple months later, or the next patch that they put into the game, say, hey, we had an issue, but we're also going to throw this in there as well. Like, I don't see a problem with it, honestly, because then that gives players time on the front end to enjoy the game leveling naturally instead of just going in and buying the boost. Okay. Now, if I know I'm probably not going to do a boost anyway because I have no need to. But if me and Brian are playing and I step away for like 2 or 3 months or something like that, and he's up at level 45 and I'm still only at level 20, and I want to go play at his level, play with him, because that's where my fun is, playing with my friends, and everybody else is above me. That's when I would buy one, just to catch up to where they are so I can enjoy the game with my friends, enjoy the game that I want to enjoy it with the people I enjoy playing games with. But again, I'm a humble little soul. So that's just me.
So I think that would probably been gone over a lot better in terms of that it would have people playing the game, feeling what it feels like, and determining if it's a good game or not. Good game is the key thing. Good game, people will pay for it. Good game equals etc. 14 has boosts, WoW has boosts, everybody has boosts. I don't like them like on a fundamental thing. I don't involve myself with them. That's fine. I think that anything that is introduced, I like it if it's tradable. I like if it like is, and how they've said it is like they said they've considered it, but it's that it's an item that you can earn in game, and then it's like if it's tradable, cool. If you want to buy them off the board and then put them up for sale for somebody to spend in game money with them, I'm perfectly fine with it. I like player trade, and that's where I stand. I think essentially, like Amazon has a lot cut out to them. They got a lot of work to do, because they have to build that trust. They have to establish that they have a good game. And then if they do that, then players will be like, okay. And I think the thing that makes me favorable to them and to the game so far is that I feel like they're open about it. They're honest about it. They're communicative. They're having that dialect, right? They're like, hey, this isn't working out. They're letting, and they've said that they're going to have that dialogue with the players. And if let's say they do, and let's say that like here in a year, they're like, okay, hey guys, this is what we were considering adding into the shop. What do you think? And then the community said, okay, this is good. Do this, but don't do that. And then they go the route that the community that's playing the game does and wants. Then I think that's an overall positive move. But the only thing that can save New World and establish that is time. That's the only thing. And if Amazon comes out, they're gonna have people will hype it. People, will fall off of it. People will go play other games. After all that's said and done, if players are playing it, and they're continuing to release content for it, they've got their work cut out for them. They've got a lot that they have to do and continue to do to establish that level of trust. So if the game comes out and if every 3 months there's a new update to the game and they're just going toe-to-toe in terms of that, 14's still going to take it. 14's got the trust and it's got the investment and the time sink. But if New World continues to do what 14 does, play fundamental baseball, deliver really good quality content, turns out they've got this too, and they just kind of do different things, I think everybody wins. I think all the gamers win. I think Yoshi P wins if New World's a success. I think New World's a success if 14, like they can look and see what people are doing and find their community and their niche and hopefully help move the MMO genre forward. But there's no forward without, finances. And that's where, gamers in it, this whole conversation gets messy really quick. That's my thought. Did that answer your question, Chaos?
Yeah, and Martians, I think, hit the nail on the head of my thought process.
Yeah.
If they announced the boosters and stuff during the first expansion, I think it would have went down a lot smoother than what it has now. And I think that was their biggest problem.
But they haven't announced boosters before the
even talking about them is just a bad idea.
And I think honestly that's a lot of part of the leaks. Like it's, I'm not going to sit here and say that you should spend money on their game. I think it's their job to earn it if they want your time and money. But
of course,
at the end of the day, I think it's a lot of pointless YouTube drama.
Of course. That's
all right.
Discussion topic.
Chaos, where can people find you?
You can find me over at YouTube at youtube.com/ChaosPrimeZYT and at Twitch at twitch.tv/ChaosPrimeZYT as well, and at Twitter at ChaosPrimeZ without the YT.
Sora, where can people find you?
You can find me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/GlobalCooldown and also on Twitter at Global Cooldown.
All right. And guys, you're here rocking and rolling on Ginger Prime and Ginger Gaming Radio. You can find me here or occasionally over on Work to Game, occasionally meaning every day, as we post quite often, hopefully giving you that daily dose of good video game content. Appreciate you being here. Thanks, guys, for hitting the like on the stream. Wherever you are, we do appreciate those. This helps share it out. And if you guys aren't aware, you can subscribe and listen in MP3 podcast format. Links will all be in the description for you to go to listen however you like to consume your podcast. Just search Work to Game Podcasts, and you will find both Epic Loot Radio and Casually Hardcore. Really appreciate you guys being here. Let's go ahead and wrap up the show. For Epic Loot Radio, my name's Brian. You have hopefully had a really good experience when you're listening to this and this endgame. We'll be back here in 2 weeks to cover more of the gaming news, E3, and so much more exciting stuff over the next couple of weeks. Guys, love you faces, and we'll see you next time. We did it!
That timing.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in live, by the way. I really appreciate all the great conversations been going on. Hopefully, y'all have enjoyed the show. I've gone long. I'm going to see here. Good. Let's see here. I'm definitely getting a message. And so I need to go and get some stuff done, guys. So I love you guys. I got to bounce. And stream and broadcast.